The night was a living, breathing storm. Rain hammering the streets, thunder rolling like a war drum in the sky. A single flash of lightning tore open the darkness, revealing the hospital's glowing red emergency sign, smeared by the downpour. Inside, chaos erupted around a pale, unconscious woman on a gurney, her hands clutched over a swollen belly, fighting for 2 lives at once. But outside, just beyond the glass doors, a black BMW cut through the rain, vanishing into the night. And in its passenger seat sat not the husband's grief, but her sister's shadow. No one inside knew it yet. But that car carried a secret. And by sunrise, blood, betrayal, and a missing body would turn this night into something no one could ever forget. Minutes earlier, the ER had been quiet. Now it was chaos. The smell of antiseptic mixed with the metallic tang of fear. Nurses shouted vitals. A doctor called for an immediate ultrasound. The baby's heartbeat flickered across the monitor. Fast, too fast. Outside, the sound of tires screeching cut through the storm. A black BMW peeled away from the curb, its headlights carving through the rain. Behind the wheel was Jason Whitmore, Claire's husband. In the passenger seat sat Sabrina Moore, Claire's older sister. Inside the ER, a nurse asked, "Where's the husband?" But Claire couldn't answer. Her world had gone dark the moment Jason walked out that hospital door. Jason and Claire's marriage had once looked perfect from the outside. He was a charismatic finance manager with a sharp suit and a smile that could disarm anyone. Claire had been a school counselor, known for her kindness and warmth. Together they seemed like the couple people rooted for. But behind closed doors, things were different. Jason's charm came with a short fuse and a growing restlessness. Money was tight, though he refused to cut back on his luxuries. And then there was Sabrina, older by 2 years, bolder, the kind of woman who took what she wanted without apology. Claire had ignored the warning signs for months. The hushed phone calls, the sudden business trips, the way Jason's eyes lingered on her sister just a little too long at family gatherings. She told herself it was her imagination. That was before tonight. Hours earlier, Claire had started feeling dizzy while making dinner. She brushed it off at first. Pregnancy came with discomforts. But when the sharp cramps hit and she collapsed in the kitchen, Jason had been home. His reaction wasn't panic. It was annoyance. "I told you to take it easy," he muttered, grabbing his phone. Claire had begged him to take her to the hospital. He did, but the drive was silent, tense. At the ER drop-off, he didn't even park. He pulled up to the entrance, let her struggle out with the help of a nurse, and said, "I'll find parking." She never saw him again. Now, while she fought for her life under blinding hospital lights, Jason's BMW was racing away from the city. The wipers couldn't keep up with the rain, but neither he nor Sabrina seemed to care. "What if someone saw us leave together?" Sabrina asked, her voice low. Jason smirked. "They're too busy with her. Besides, she'll be fine. She always bounces back." Sabrina glanced at him. "And if she doesn't?" Jason's hands tightened on the wheel. "Then that solves a lot of problems." Back at the hospital, Dr. Patel was explaining to a nurse that Claire's blood pressure was dangerously low. "We need to stabilize her before we lose both," she said. Claire drifted in and out of consciousness, flashes of memory blurring together. Jason's cold eyes in the car, Sabrina's smirk at the last Thanksgiving dinner, the baby kicking inside her like it was trying to warn her. Claire's parents arrived, their faces pale with shock. "Where is Jason?" her mother demanded. No one had an answer. Meanwhile, Jason and Sabrina pulled off the main highway, heading toward a secluded back road lined with pine trees. The rain turned the dirt path into slick mud. The BMW's tires slipped, but Jason kept going. Sabrina laughed, the sound sharp in the enclosed space. "You're really not going back, are you?" Jason's jaw clenched. "I've had enough of her. I can't breathe in that house, and with the baby coming, forget it. This is our chance to start over." Sabrina leaned back, satisfied. "So where are we going?" Jason hesitated. "Somewhere no one will find us tonight." The truth was, Jason wasn't just running from his wife. He was running from debt. His credit cards were maxed, his job hanging by a thread. Sabrina wasn't exactly a safe harbor, but she had one thing Claire didn't: access to a small inheritance. Back in the ER, Claire's condition worsened. Machines beeped frantically. The doctor ordered an emergency procedure. Her mother held her hand, whispering, "Stay with me, baby. You're stronger than this." Out in the storm, Jason's BMW hit a sharp bend. He swerved to avoid a fallen branch, the tires skidding. Sabrina grabbed the dashboard. "Jason!" The car fishtailed, the back end swinging toward the edge of a steep drop. Jason fought the wheel, his heart pounding. The headlights caught a flash of something, metal, twisted and rusted. A guardrail, broken. The BMW slammed into it with a sickening crunch. The front end crumpled, the airbags exploded, and everything went black. Hours later, a county sheriff's cruiser rolled up to the scene. The rain had stopped, but the night was heavy with the smell of wet earth and gasoline. Deputy Harris stepped out, shining his flashlight on the wreck. The BMW was there. Doors open, airbags deployed. But the seats were empty. No Jason, no Sabrina, no footprints leading away. Just the faint echo of the storm and the sound of water rushing in the ravine below. Back at the hospital, Claire's monitor flatlined for 2 terrifying seconds before spiking again. She gasped for air, her eyes fluttering open. Her first words were hoarse, almost a whisper. "Where's Jason?" No one wanted to answer, because by then, the news had already reached the hospital. Jason's car had been found wrecked on Miller's Bluff Road, and there was no sign of him or Sabrina anywhere. The fluorescent lights in the ER hallway buzzed softly, a strange, steady sound against the frantic pace of the night. Claire lay in a hospital bed, her skin pale against the stark white sheets, her breathing shallow but steady. The baby's heartbeat was stronger now, though still being monitored every few minutes. Her mother, Evelyn, sat beside her, clutching Claire's hand like she might float away if she let go. "Don't worry about him," Evelyn whispered. "Focus on you and the baby." But Claire's mind was spinning. Every moment of the evening replayed in jagged fragments. Jason's impatient voice, Sabrina's sideways glance, the slam of the car door. Her stomach tightened at the thought of them together. She had never imagined betrayal could cut this deep. Outside her room, the hospital corridor was filling with murmurs. 2 sheriff's deputies had arrived, their uniforms damp from the rain. Deputy Harris, the one who had found the BMW, stepped into the room. His expression was neutral, professional, but Claire caught the flicker of something else. "Mrs. Whitmore," he began, "we located your husband's vehicle tonight on Miller's Bluff Road. The car had been in an accident. No one was inside when we arrived." Claire's heart thudded painfully. "And Jason? My sister?" Harris hesitated. "We're searching the area now. It's possible they walked away from the scene, but the terrain is rough, and there's a steep drop into a ravine." Evelyn's hand tightened on her daughter's. "A ravine?" she asked sharply. "Yes, ma'am. It's about 40 feet down. There's water at the bottom, fast-moving this time of year." Claire's breath caught. She pictured Jason's face, not the charming smile he showed the world, but the cold, detached look she'd seen earlier that night, and Sabrina's smirk. Something told her that if either of them was hurt, it wasn't fate. It was consequence. "Did you find anything else?" Claire asked. The deputy nodded. "We found 2 cell phones in the car. Both were smashed. Could have been from the crash or something else." Something else. The words lingered in her mind like a shadow. By midnight, the hospital's waiting room had turned into a command post. Sheriff's deputies spread out maps of Miller's Bluff, marking potential search areas. Volunteers from the nearby fire department arrived with flashlights and climbing gear. The storm had eased, but mist still clung to the air, turning the night into a blur of silver and gray. Claire's brother, Mark, burst through the doors, his hair damp, his jacket zipped to the throat. He had been away on business in Chicago, but when he got Evelyn's call, he'd driven straight through the night. "Where is he?" Mark demanded, his voice like steel. "And what the hell was Sabrina doing with him?" Evelyn shot him a warning glance. "Not here, Mark." But Claire shook her head. "No, I want to know too." Mark's eyes softened when they met hers. "I don't know the details, but I do know Jason's been in trouble. Real trouble. There are people looking for him, not the kind who knock on the front door." Claire frowned. "What do you mean?" Mark glanced at the deputies, then back at her. "I mean he owes money to the wrong people. And if Sabrina's with him, either she's helping him run, or she's a target too." It felt like the room shifted under Claire's bed. All this time, she had believed the cracks in her marriage were about her pregnancy, about stress. But maybe it had been something darker. Around 2 a.m., Harris returned, his face grim. "We've located footprints about 20 yards from the crash site." 2 sets, one male, one female. They head toward the tree line. After that, they disappear. The ground's too muddy to track without dogs, and the rain washed most of it away. Which way? Mark asked. North, Harris replied. Toward the old quarry. Claire's pulse quickened. The quarry was a dead zone. No cell service, no lights, nothing but jagged rock and cold water. You can't go out there now, Evelyn said. You'll kill yourself in the dark. I'm not sitting here, Mark snapped. They left her here to die. I'm not waiting for the sun to come up. Claire tried to sit up, wincing as pain radiated through her lower back. Mark, don't do something stupid. Her brother softened again, leaning over to kiss her forehead. Rest. I'll find them. The deputies followed Mark out into the night, their flashlights bobbing in the darkness. Alone again with her mother, Claire felt a slow burn rise in her chest. It wasn't just anger, it was clarity. Jason hadn't been her partner in a long time. Tonight had proved that whatever they had was over. She looked at Evelyn. If they find him, and he's alive, I don't want him near me or the baby, ever again. Evelyn nodded, her eyes glistening. We'll make sure of that. But fate wasn't done with Claire. At 3:15 a.m., the ER doors slid open and 2 paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. Claire caught only a glimpse, mud-streaked clothing, a limp arm, a hand she knew as well as her own. Jason. His face was pale, lips tinged blue, water dripping from his hair. He was alive. The gurney rolled past her room, but Claire's heart froze. Because the paramedic was shouting, "We need a crash cart. She's not breathing." It wasn't Jason they were trying to save. Claire struggled out of bed, her IV tugging painfully. Evelyn tried to hold her back, but she gripped the doorframe, staring down the hall. On the stretcher behind Jason was Sabrina. Her skin was ashen, her eyes half open, her hair matted with river weeds. Jason's eyes met Claire's for the first time that night. There was no apology in them, only something darker, something that made her stomach twist. The ER doors slammed shut behind them, leaving Claire in the hallway, her pulse thundering in her ears. Because in that split second, she realized Jason hadn't brought Sabrina to the hospital to save her. He had brought her back to finish what the river hadn't. The sun was just starting to stain the horizon a faint pink when the hospital quiet shifted into a low hum of activity. Overnight, patients were waking, nurses changed shifts, and somewhere in the ICU wing, a monitor beeped steadily over Sabrina Moore's bed. Claire hadn't slept. She sat in a wheelchair near her room window, her gown loose around her shoulders, one hand resting on her stomach as if to shield her unborn child from the toxic air Jason carried with him. Her mind replayed the moment she'd seen them. Jason dripping with river water, Sabrina limp beside him, and the look in his eyes. It hadn't been fear for Sabrina. It had been calculation. Mark returned around 6 a.m., his hair damp from the mist outside. "They've got deputies guarding the ICU," he said quietly. "Sabrina's in critical condition. They're saying she inhaled a lot of water before they pulled her out." "And Jason?" Claire asked without looking at him. Mark's jaw clenched. "He's fine. Not a scratch, apparently. They're keeping him here for observation, but he's not cuffed yet." Claire finally turned to face her brother. "Yet?" Mark leaned closer. "One of the deputies told me off the record. They're suspicious. The crash site doesn't match Jason's story. He claims he swerved to avoid a deer, but there's no skid pattern for that. The guardrail was hit at an angle that looks intentional." Claire's breath hitched. "You think he tried to?" "I don't think," Mark interrupted. "I know, and I think Sabrina's just the start of this mess." Before Claire could respond, the door swung open. Jason stepped inside, his hair neatly combed now, wearing clean hospital scrubs. He had that same polished charm in place, like nothing had happened. "Claire," he said smoothly, "you look pale. Are you okay?" She stared at him in silence. Her mother, Evelyn, rose from her chair. "You need to leave," Evelyn said, her voice low but sharp. Jason ignored her. "I know last night was chaotic, but you have to understand I was trying to get help." "By driving off with my sister?" Claire's voice was steady, colder than she expected. Jason's gaze hardened for a fraction of a second before softening again. Sabrina was upset. She needed to talk. "We didn't think." "That's right," Mark cut in. "You didn't think. Or maybe you thought too much." Jason's smile vanished. "Stay out of this, Mark. This is between my wife and me." Claire almost laughed. "Wife? You left me in a hospital parking lot while I was fighting for our child. You don't get to use that word anymore. Jason stepped closer, lowering his voice. Careful, Claire. You're upset, and people say things they regret when they're upset. Her pulse quickened, but not from fear. For the first time, she realized Jason was the one on unstable ground. No, she said evenly. I'm just done pretending. Jason's eyes narrowed, but before he could speak, a knock came at the door. Deputy Harris entered, holding a clipboard. Mr. Whitmore, we need to ask you a few more questions about last night. Jason's tone shifted instantly, the charms snapping back into place. Of course, officer. He glanced at Claire, his smile tight. We'll finish this later. When he left with Harris, Mark exhaled. He's sweating, I can see it. Claire turned back to the window, her mind already moving ahead. Good, let him sweat. By mid-morning, the hospital was buzzing with reporters outside. Somehow, word of the crash had leaked and camera crews were camped at the main entrance. Mark suspected Jason had just called them himself. He was a master at controlling the narrative when things went south. But this time, Claire wasn't going to let him. She asked Mark to get her phone from her bag. There was one person she hadn't spoken to in years, but who would take her call without hesitation. Olivia Grant, an investigative journalist, an old college friend. Claire had helped Olivia through a bad breakup years ago. Now she needed Olivia's help to expose something far worse. Olivia answered on the second ring. Claire? Wow, it's been... Olivia, I need you to listen. No small talk. Jason's hiding something. I think he tried to hurt my sister. And I think this isn't the first time he's done something like this. There was a pause. Are you safe? For now, but I need you to dig. Bank records, business deals, anything shady. He's in debt, Mark says. If we can prove it, we can keep him away from me and the baby. Olivia didn't hesitate. Text me whatever you have on him. I'll start now. When Claire hung up, she felt a flicker of power return, a spark she thought Jason had extinguished months ago. By noon, the deputies returned. Harris entered, this time with a more formal tone. Mrs. Whitmore, we have a few questions for you as well. It's about the hours leading up to the incident. Claire nodded, recounting the cramps, the drive to the ER, Jason's disappearance, and the moment she saw him leave with Sabrina. Harris listened carefully, jotting notes. Thank you, ma'am, he said finally. We may need a formal statement later. After he left, Evelyn looked at her daughter. You're playing this smart, Claire. But be careful. Jason won't take losing control well. Claire knew her mother was right. Jason thrived on dominance. If he sensed the tide turning, he could lash out. But she wasn't going to be passive anymore. In the ICU, Sabrina remained unconscious, her condition critical. Nurses came and went, adjusting monitors and IV drips. Claire hadn't been allowed in yet, but she kept asking. Around 3 p.m., a nurse finally approached. She's stable enough for a short visit. 2 minutes. Claire wheeled herself down the hall, her heart pounding. The sight of her sister, pale, fragile, a breathing tube in her mouth, hit her harder than she expected. She reached for Sabrina's hand. I don't know what happened out there, Claire whispered, but I need you to wake up. I need the truth, please. Sabrina's eyelids fluttered, but there was no real response. Claire's time was up, and the nurse gently ushered her out. Back in her room, Mark was waiting, phone in hand. Olivia just sent me something. You need to see this. On the screen was a scanned document, a loan agreement. Jason had borrowed $200,000 from a private lender tied to organized crime. The due date? Last week. The penalty for default was severe. Claire felt a chill. If Jason was desperate enough, causing an accident to collect on an insurance policy or to eliminate someone who could expose him wasn't unthinkable. Mark looked at her grimly. We can give this to the sheriff. But once we do, Jason will know we're behind it. Claire didn't hesitate. Do it. I'm not living in fear of him anymore. Mark nodded and left to make the call. Claire leaned back in her chair, her hand protectively over her belly. She could feel the baby's steady kicks, reminding her of what was at stake. The room was quiet for a few minutes, until the door creaked open again. Claire looked up, expecting her mother or a nurse. It wasn't. Jason stood there, alone, his expression unreadable. He closed the door behind him with a soft click. We need to talk, he said. Because if you keep digging into my business, Claire, you and that baby won't make it out of this hospital. The air in the hospital room felt suddenly colder. Jason stood just inside the doorway, the pale morning light from the hallway framing him like a shadow. Claire's heartbeat pounded in her ears, but she kept her gaze steady. "You're threatening me now?" she asked, her voice calm but edged with steel. Jason stepped closer, his hands tucked into the pockets of his hospital scrubs. "I'm giving you a warning. You have no idea who you're dealing with." "I think I do," she replied. "You're a man drowning in debt, dragging everyone down with you, including my sister." His jaw tightened. Sabrina knew what she was getting into. "She's lying in the ICU," Claire snapped. "She can't even breathe on her own." Jason's expression didn't waver. "Accidents happen, but if you keep poking around, if you go to the cops with anything, you'll regret it." Claire felt the baby kick, a sharp reminder of what she had to protect. But she also knew she couldn't back down. "Get out, Jason. We're done." He leaned in, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "You think you're safe in here? Hospitals are full of mistakes, wrong meds, machines unplugged. All it takes is one." Her stomach twisted, but she forced herself not to flinch. "You're not scaring me anymore." Jason's eyes darkened, but before he could reply, the door opened. Deputy Harris stepped in, holding a manila envelope. "Mr. Whitmore, we need you to come with us." Jason straightened. "On what grounds?" "We have more questions about the accident," Harris said, "and we have new information from a witness." Jason's smirk faltered a fraction of a second before he masked it. "I'll be back, Claire." As Harris escorted him out, Claire's breath came in shaky bursts. Evelyn, who had been hovering outside the room, stepped in. "What did he say to you?" "Nothing I didn't already know," Claire lied. She didn't want to burden her mother with the threat. Not yet. Minutes later, Mark returned, looking grim. Olivia's digging turned up more. "Jason's debt isn't just money. He's been laundering funds through shell companies. If the cops trace it, he's done." "Then let's make sure they trace it," Claire said. Mark's eyebrows rose. "You want to go on the offensive?" "Yes. He's already trying to intimidate me. If I sit back, he'll think I'm weak." Mark nodded slowly. "All right, but we have to be smart. We'll need proof. Bank statements, emails, anything tying him to those companies." Claire thought for a moment. Jason's laptop. He keeps it locked in his office at home. The password is his favorite golf course. "That's risky," Mark warned. "Not as risky as letting him walk away with everything," she said. By late afternoon, Mark was on his way to Jason's office. Claire stayed in the hospital, pretending to rest while her mind raced. She checked her phone for updates from Olivia. Nothing yet. The waiting was torture. At 5 p.m., the ICU nurse stopped by. "Sabrina's vitals are improving. She may wake up soon." Relief washed over Claire, but it was tangled with anxiety. What would Sabrina say when she woke up? Would she protect Jason or finally tell the truth? Around 6:15, Claire's phone buzzed. It was Mark. "I'm in. Got the laptop. Sending files to Olivia now." Her pulse quickened. "Anything good?" "Oh yeah," Mark said. "It's worse than we thought. Offshore accounts, wire transfers to names tied to loan sharks. And Claire, there's a file on you." Her blood ran cold. "On me?" "Yeah. Photos, notes about your schedule, even medical stuff. Looks like he's been tracking you." Claire gripped the phone tighter. "Send it all to Olivia. Don't hold anything back." Mark promised he would, but before they hung up, he added, "Be careful tonight. If Jason gets out, he's going to know we were in his files." She didn't have to wait long to see if that prediction came true. At 8:30, the hallway outside her room echoed with footsteps. Jason appeared in the doorway again, flanked by a different deputy, one who didn't look pleased to be there. "They had nothing to hold me on," Jason said casually, stepping inside. Claire's chest tightened. "Get out." "Relax," he said with a smirk. "I just came to check on my wife and child. That's not a crime, is it?" "You've made a career out of doing things that aren't technically a crime," she shot back. Jason chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. "You've been busy today. I'd tell you to be careful, but I think it's too late for that." She didn't respond. Instead, she pressed the nurse call button. When the nurse arrived, Jason took the hint and left. The moment he was gone, Claire called Olivia. "Did you get the files?" "I did," Olivia said. "And Claire, this is enough to bury him, but you need to decide. If I publish, it'll go public fast. He'll know exactly who handed it to me." Claire stared at the closed door. "Do it." By 10 p.m., the first article went live. The headline was blunt. Local businessman tied to money laundering, organized crime. Jason's face stared back at her from the news site, his polished image now framed by words like fraud and federal investigation. Her phone buzzed with messages. Friends, acquaintances, even strangers sending her links. The story was already spreading on social media. Mark came back, grinning. You just lit a fire under him. That's the point, Claire said. But she didn't have long to enjoy it. At 11:30, the hospital's fire alarm went off. Lights flashed in the hallway, and a voice over the intercom ordered everyone to evacuate. Nurses rushed from room to room, wheeling patients toward the stairwells. Evelyn hurried to Claire's side. We have to move. Claire nodded, gripping her IV pole as they headed toward the exit. The smell of smoke was faint but real. Halfway down the hall, she saw him, Jason, standing near a side door, watching her. He wasn't moving toward an exit. He was waiting. Her breath caught. The chaos around them made it easy for him to vanish into the crowd, or to pull her into that side door without anyone noticing. Mark was on the other side of the hallway, trying to push through the crush of people to reach her. And in that split second, Claire realized that the fire alarm might not be an accident at all. It might be Jason's cover to make her disappear. The hospital hallway was a storm of movement. Nurses pushing gurneys, patients shuffling with IV poles, alarms blaring overhead. The red strobe lights pulsed against the pale walls, painting everything in flashes of danger. Claire's breathing quickened as she caught sight of Jason, leaning casually near the side exit door like he was waiting for a cab instead of standing in the middle of an evacuation. His eyes locked on hers, and his mouth curved into the kind of smile that had once charmed her, only now it looked like a predator baring its teeth. Evelyn's hand tightened around her daughter's arm. Come on, she urged, steering Claire toward the main exit with the rest of the crowd. But Jason stepped forward, melting into the flow of people, his gaze never leaving her. Mark was pushing his way through the chaos from the opposite direction, his voice raised. Claire, this way. She hesitated for a split second, caught between her mother's urgent pull toward safety and her brother's call. Jason used that moment, closing the distance in 3 quick strides. Claire, he said, his voice low but carrying over the noise, you're going the wrong way. The stairs are jammed. This exit's faster. Evelyn shot him a glare. We're not following you anywhere. Jason's smile didn't falter. Suit yourself. But if there's real smoke in here, the main exit will be a bottleneck. Think about the baby. It was a calculated strike, and Claire knew it. He was using her child as leverage, playing on every instinct she had to protect her unborn son or daughter. Before she could respond, the intercom crackled. All personnel evacuate immediately. Avoid north stairwell. Repeat. Avoid north stairwell. That was where the main crowd was headed. Evelyn froze. What do we do? Mark finally reached them, slightly out of breath. The south stairwell's clear. Follow me. Jason's eyes flicked to Mark, his expression darkening. Funny, you suddenly care about their safety. Mark ignored him and turned to Claire. We don't have time for his games. They moved, sticking close together as they followed the signs toward the south stairs. Jason trailed them, never more than a few steps behind. The air smelled faintly of smoke now, and Claire's heart pounded faster. Halfway down the hallway, a nurse hurried past, shouting that the ICU was sealed due to smoke near the oxygen tanks. Claire's stomach twisted. Sabrina was still in there. We have to make sure she's okay, she said instinctively. Evelyn shook her head. Claire, no, you can't. Jason's voice slid in, smooth as ever. I can get her out. You just have to trust me. Claire laughed bitterly. Trust you? You left me in a parking lot while I was bleeding. Jason's jaw twitched. I did what I had to do. The hallway narrowed as they reached the stairwell door. Mark pushed it open, revealing dim concrete steps spiraling downward. The sound of shouts and hurried footsteps echoed from below. Go, Mark urged. Evelyn went first, gripping the handrail. Claire followed, her IV pole rattling against the metal steps. Mark came next, glancing over his shoulder, only to see Jason slip in right behind him. By the third landing, the smoke was thicker, stinging Claire's eyes. She coughed, her chest tightening. Almost there, Mark called. 2 more floors. That was when the lights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness, broken only by the emergency strips along the floor. In the dim glow, Jason's silhouette loomed closer. Careful, Claire, he said softly. These stairs are slippery. Mark stopped and turned. Back off, Jason. Jason chuckled. What, you think you can play hero? You've always been jealous. Jealous? Mark barked out a short laugh. Of a con artist? You've built your whole life on lies. The tension between them crackled like static, but Claire's legs were trembling too much to intervene. She focused on the baby, on keeping her balance. At the ground floor, they emerged into another hallway, this one eerily quiet. The smoke smell was stronger here. Exit signs glowed faintly, pointing toward double-glass doors at the far end. They moved quickly, but as they neared the doors, a shadow stepped into their path. It was a hospital security guard, except his uniform didn't match the ones Claire had seen before. His badge was blank. Wrong way, he said flatly. This area's restricted. Mark frowned. Restricted? It's an exit. The man's eyes flicked to Jason, and something passed between them, silent but unmistakable. Claire's gut tightened. Mark, Jason's voice cut her off. It's fine, he's with me. That was all Claire needed to hear. She grabbed Evelyn's arm and whispered, Back, now. Mark caught on instantly. Go, he barked, shoving open a side door that led into another corridor. They sprinted, Claire as fast as her condition allowed, while behind them Jason's voice rose in anger. You can't run forever, Claire. They turned corner after corner, the building's layout twisting into a maze. Finally, they burst into the main lobby, where fire crews were directing people outside. The blast of cold night air hit Claire's face like a blessing. They made it to the curb, where ambulances idled with their back doors open. A firefighter approached. You folks okay? We're fine, Mark said quickly. But there's a man in there, Jason Whitmore. He might be trying to use the evacuation to get to someone. Can you alert the police? The firefighter nodded and relayed the message over his radio. Claire was helped into an ambulance for warmth while they waited for the all clear. Her pulse was still racing, but for the first time in hours, she felt like they had put some distance between themselves and Jason. But the reprieve was short-lived. An EMT leaned into the ambulance. Ma'am, we've got a problem. Your sister Sabrina, she's missing. Her bed's empty. Claire's blood ran cold. What? She couldn't have just gotten up. She was unconscious. That's why it's a problem, the EMT said grimly. She didn't leave on her own. Evelyn gasped. You think Jason? Mark cursed under his breath. If he took her. Claire's mind spun. If Jason had Sabrina, she was either a hostage or a loose end he planned to get rid of. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered on instinct. Jason's voice came through, calm and deliberate. Looking for your sister? Then you're going to listen very carefully, Claire, because if you ever want to see her alive again, you're going to do exactly what I say. And with that, the line went dead, leaving only the sound of Claire's own ragged breathing against the cold night air. The cold night air felt sharper after Jason's voice faded from the phone. Claire stared at the dark screen, her hands trembling, not just from fear but from fury. Her sister was in no condition to move, and yet Jason had her. Evelyn's voice shook. What did he say? Claire swallowed hard. He has Sabrina, and he wants me to do something for him if I ever want to see her alive again. Mark leaned in. What something? Did he say? No, he just said to listen carefully, and then hung up. Mark clenched his fists. This is his leverage. He knows we've got dirt on him, and he's trying to use Sabrina to control you. Claire nodded slowly. And it's going to work, if we let him. Before Mark could respond, Deputy Harris appeared, his uniform smudged with soot from the evacuation. We've cleared most of the building, but we can't find your husband or your sister. We're setting up a perimeter. Claire's voice was firm. Set it wide. He's not stupid. He's not going to stay close. Harris studied her. If he calls again, keep him talking. We can trace the call if we're lucky. The fire alarm had been silenced now, and the hospital staff began herding evacuated patients back inside. Claire refused to go. She insisted on staying in the ambulance with Mark and Evelyn, waiting for Jason's next move. It came 20 minutes later. Her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. She answered, putting it on speaker so Mark and Harris could hear. Jason's tone was calm, almost conversational. Here's how this is going to work, Claire. You're going to meet me, alone. No police, no brother, no mommy holding your hand. You bring what I want, and you get your sister back. Claire kept her voice steady. And what exactly do you want? Jason chuckled. All the files you stole from my laptop. Every copy. You hand them to me, I give you Sabrina, simple. They're not just on my laptop anymore, she said. Not my problem, Jason replied. You find them. You bring them. You have 2 hours. Mark jumped in. Where? Jason's voice turned sharp. I said alone, Mark. If I see you or the cops, Sabrina's body will be the next thing you see. Claire's heart pounded. Where, Jason? There was a pause. Then, Old Quarry, the South Overlook, midnight. The line went dead. Mark cursed under his breath. It's a setup. He'll never give her back. He just wants to destroy the evidence. Claire looked at Harris. Can you have someone in position before I get there? Harris hesitated. We could, but if he spots us, he might panic. You'd be in danger. Claire took a deep breath. I'm already in danger. So is my sister. We do this smart, we all walk away alive. An hour later, the plan was set. Claire would go to the meeting spot with a decoy, fake files on a flash drive. The real evidence was already in Olivia's hands, scheduled to be sent to the authorities by morning. Harris arranged for a small undercover team to position themselves around the quarry. Mark would be close enough to see, but far enough to stay hidden. By 11:30 p.m., the sky was black, a thin crescent moon barely breaking through the clouds. Claire sat in the passenger seat of an unmarked car, the drive to the quarry winding through dense pine trees. Her pulse was a steady drumbeat in her ears. When they arrived, she stepped out, clutching the flash drive in her coat pocket. The wind off the quarry was cold, carrying the faint sound of rushing water from far below. Jason emerged from the shadows near the cliff's edge. He looked the same as always. Calm, calculated, but there was something in his eyes now, a flicker of desperation. You came, he said. I want my sister, Claire replied, and I want my files. He held out his hand. She didn't move. Not until I see her. Jason smiled thinly. You don't trust me? I'm hurt. Where is she? Claire demanded. He tilted his head toward a pickup truck parked a few yards away. The passenger door opened, and Claire's heart lurched. Sabrina sat inside, pale and weak, her hands bound in front of her. She was alive. Jason took a step closer. Now give me the drive. Claire slowly reached into her pocket, pulling out the flash drive. She held it out, but didn't release it. You let her go first. Jason's smile hardened. We both know that's not how this works. Behind him, a shadow moved, Mark creeping closer. Claire's stomach knotted. If Jason saw him, everything could go wrong. Jason extended his other hand, palm up. Claire? Now. Her fingers loosened on the drive, but at that exact moment, Sabrina's voice cut through the wind. Claire, don't! Jason's head snapped toward the truck. That was all the opening Claire needed. She yanked her hand back and threw the flash drive into the darkness over the cliff. Jason cursed, spinning toward her. But before he could move, Mark lunged from the shadows. The two men collided, struggling near the cliff's edge. Sabrina was shouting now, trying to free herself. Claire ran for the truck, fumbling with the door handle. She managed to pull it open, helping Sabrina out. But then she heard it, the sound of gravel shifting underfoot. She turned just in time to see Jason shove Mark backward. Mark stumbled, teetering at the cliff's edge, arms flailing for balance. And before Claire could reach him, Jason stepped forward and shoved, sending Mark over the side into the darkness below. The sound of Mark's body disappearing into the darkness below was swallowed by the roar of rushing water from the quarry's river. For a split second, there was nothing. No scream, no splash, just silence that chilled Claire to her core. Mark! She screamed, her voice cracking in the cold night air. Jason didn't even look down. He straightened, breathing hard, and turned toward her with an expression that was almost satisfied. One less problem. Rage flared hot in Claire's chest, but Sabrina's weight against her side reminded her that there was still someone else she needed to protect. Sabrina's legs were shaky, her wrists raw from the rope. Claire glared at Jason. You're a monster. Jason took a slow step toward them, his hands loose at his sides. You don't get it, do you? Everything I've done, every choice, it's been survival. People like you wouldn't last a day in my world. Then I don't want to be in your world, Claire spat. Jason's jaw tightened. Too late. You're already in it, and now you're going to help me get out of it, or you're both going over that cliff next. Claire's mind raced. Harris's team had to be nearby, hidden in the dark, waiting for a signal. But how close were they? Close enough to save her before Jason made good on his threat? She shifted her stance subtly, trying to angle herself and Sabrina away from the cliff edge. "What do you want, Jason?" His eyes locked on hers. "Money, a fresh start. The files were my ticket to negotiate with people who could clear my debts. But you," he glanced at the dark cliff where Mark had fallen, "you ruined that." Sabrina's voice was barely above a whisper. "Claire, don't let him." Jason snapped his head toward her. "Shut up." The sudden sharpness in his tone made Claire's pulse spike. Every muscle in her body screamed to run, but the cliff and Jason's size made that impossible. And then, a faint rustle from the tree line. Jason froze. "Who's there?" His voice echoed against the rock walls. Claire's heart leapt. It had to be Harris. She tightened her grip on Sabrina's arm. "We're not alone, Jason. You should think very carefully about your next move." Jason smirked, but his eyes darted nervously toward the shadows. "You think your cop friends can get to you before I do something you'll regret?" "You've already done enough. I'll regret for the rest of my life," Claire said. That's when the first beam of a flashlight cut through the darkness. "Sheriff's Department. Step away from them, Jason." Jason swore under his breath, grabbing Claire's arm and yanking her toward the cliff. She stumbled, trying to dig her heels into the gravel. "Let her go!" Harris's voice was closer now, boots crunching on stone. Jason laughed without humor. "Take another step and she's gone." He shifted his grip, now holding Claire partially in front of him as a shield. Sabrina backed up, her breathing ragged. Claire could see her edging toward the pickup truck, but she didn't dare look directly, didn't want to draw Jason's attention to her sister's slow retreat. "Jason," Claire said evenly, "you don't have to do this. You can walk away. We can all walk away." "You think I'm that stupid?" he barked. "The second I let you go, I'm in cuffs. I'm not ending my life in a cell." Claire's mind worked fast. Jason was desperate, and desperate men made mistakes. If she could just distract him for a few more seconds? She forced her voice calm. "You said everything you've done was survival. Then survive. Drop me and run. You've still got a chance." Jason hesitated, and in that heartbeat, Sabrina acted. She grabbed the heavy metal flashlight from the truck's cab and hurled it toward him. It hit his shoulder with a dull thud. Jason grunted in pain, his grip on Claire loosening just enough for her to twist free. "Now!" Harris shouted. Two deputies surged forward from the darkness. Jason tried to bolt, but Claire shoved him backward with all the force she had. His feet slid on the loose gravel, and he stumbled dangerously close to the edge. For one terrifying second, he teetered there, arms flailing, then regained his balance. His eyes burned into hers with a look she'd never forget. "You'll pay for this, Claire," he snarled. He turned to run toward the tree line, but Harris tackled him hard, both men hitting the ground with a grunt. Deputies swarmed in, forcing Jason's hands behind his back. Claire collapsed to her knees, the adrenaline leaving her shaky. Sabrina limped over, and they clung to each other. "Mark," Claire choked out, looking toward the cliff. Harris followed her gaze. "We've got a rescue team heading down now." "We don't know if..." A shout rose from below. "We've got him. He's alive." Relief hit Claire so hard her vision blurred. She wanted to collapse completely, but she had to see Mark with her own eyes. Minutes later, rescuers appeared from the path that wound down the cliff, supporting Mark between them. He was soaked, scraped, and pale, but smiling weakly. "Guess I'd bounce," he said hoarsely. Claire hugged him carefully, feeling his shivers against her. "Don't ever do that again." Jason, still cuffed, was being led toward a waiting patrol car. He caught Claire's eye one last time. There was no remorse there, only cold calculation, like he was already thinking about his next move. Harris leaned in to Claire. "He's going to face a long list of charges, but with people like him, don't assume it's over." Claire nodded, but her focus was on her family, on keeping them safe, even if that meant the fight wasn't finished. She turned to the deputies. "I want a restraining order, and I want to know the second he makes bail." Harris promised they'd keep her updated. But as the patrol car's taillights disappeared into the night, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that Jason's parting glare had been more than anger. It had been a promise. She looked at Mark, Sabrina, and Evelyn. They were together, alive, but she knew in her gut the danger wasn't over. And hours later, long after the quarry had gone quiet, Claire's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won, but the game isn't over." Claire didn't sleep the rest of that night. Every creak of the hospital's heating system, every shadow outside the window, made her pulse spike. The text from the unknown number was burned into her mind. You think you've won. But the game isn't over. By morning, Jason's arrest had made the front page of every local news site. Olivia had followed up her first story with another explosive article, this one detailing the evidence from Jason's laptop, shell companies, offshore accounts, and links to known criminals. The comment section was filled with outrage and disgust. His once polished reputation was gone. But Claire, none like Jason, didn't give up easily. At 9 a.m., Harris stopped by her room. Jason's lawyer is already filing for bail. With the charges we've got, assault, attempted murder, kidnapping, it'll be tough for him to get out, but I've seen stranger things happen. We'll keep you posted. Claire tightened her grip on her blanket. I can't live looking over my shoulder every day. I need this to end. Mark was sitting beside her, his ribs taped, an arm in a sling. Then we make sure he's got nowhere to run and no one to run to. Olivia called an hour later. Claire, I've got something. One of Jason's business partners, well, ex-partners, reached out. He says Jason's been holding documents tying that partner to tax fraud. In exchange for immunity, the guy's willing to testify and hand over more evidence. It's enough to nail Jason on federal charges. Claire felt the first real spark of hope in days. When can we get it? Today, Olivia said. But we need to move fast. Word's going around in certain circles that Jason's associates are trying to destroy anything that connects back to him. Mark stood up despite his injuries. I'll go with her. By early afternoon, Claire and Mark were in Olivia's small office downtown. The ex-partner, a nervous man in his 50s named Ronald, slid a thick envelope across the table. Everything's in there. Wire transfers, forged contracts, even emails where Jason talks about accidents as a way to settle debts. Claire's stomach turned. Accidents. That's what he called it when he left me bleeding in a parking lot. Olivia scanned the documents quickly. This is gold. If the feds get this, Jason's done for decades. Claire didn't hesitate. Then let's get it to them now. An hour later, they were in the federal building, handing the evidence to an assistant U.S. attorney. The man's expression was serious. With this, we can bring organized crime charges and financial crimes, and given the attempted murder allegations, we'll push for no bail. It was the first time Claire truly believed Jason might never walk free again. That night, she returned to the hospital to check on Sabrina, who was now awake and speaking, though still weak. Sabrina's eyes filled with tears when she saw Claire. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how bad he was until it was too late. I thought I was helping him. Claire squeezed her hand. We're past blame. All that matters is you're alive. They sat in silence for a moment, the bond between them stronger than it had been in years. But peace didn't last long. At 10:45 p.m., Harris called. His voice was tight. Jason's lawyer pulled a stunt in court. He got a temporary bail hearing moved up to tonight, but before the hearing could finish, Jason slipped his restraints and ran. We're in pursuit. Claire's heart lurched. You mean he's loose? Not for long, Harris said. We've got roadblocks, and his face is everywhere. Stay in a secure location. But Claire's gut told her Jason wouldn't waste his freedom on running forever. No, he'd come straight for her. She told Mark and Evelyn to stay with Sabrina and called Olivia. If Jason's coming, I'm ending this tonight. They agreed to meet at Claire's house, Jason's former home, where she knew he might try to retrieve anything he thought could save him. Harris stationed 2 unmarked cars down the street, hidden in the shadows. By midnight, the house was silent, lit only by a single lamp in the living room. Claire sat on the couch, a small recorder hidden in her pocket. Her phone was in her hand, ready to signal Harris with one tap. At 12:27 a.m., the back door creaked. Footsteps on hardwood, then Jason's voice, smooth and low. You always did leave the door unlocked when you wanted me to come in. Claire didn't turn. I wanted to give you a chance, Jason, one last chance to tell the truth. He stepped into the light, his clothes damp from the drizzle outside. Truth? You wouldn't know the truth if it bit you. Everything you've done, every move, has been to destroy me. You destroyed yourself, she said evenly. And tonight, it ends. Jason's smile was sharp. You think you're in control here? I know I am, Claire said, slipping her finger over the signal button on her phone. Because you just broke into my house while out on the run, and you're going to tell me everything right into this recorder. Jason froze, eyes narrowing. You're bluffing. Claire met his gaze without blinking. Try me. For the first time, she saw doubt flicker in his eyes. He took a step closer, but headlights flared outside. Shouts rang out, Harris's team rushing the house. Jason spun toward the back door, but 2 deputies tackled him before he made it 3 steps. The recorder in Claire's pocket captured every word of his arrest, including his furious threats. Harris met her eyes as Jason was dragged out in cuffs. This time, he's not getting out. Federal hold. Maximum security. Claire exhaled, the weight lifting from her chest for the first time in weeks. She looked at Harris. Make sure he can't get near me or my family again. He nodded. That's a promise. 3 months later, Claire stood on the porch of her now peaceful home. The trial had been swift. Thanks to the mountain of evidence, Jason had been sentenced to 40 years without parole. His associates had either been arrested or fled the state. Sabrina was recovering well, working through physical therapy. Mark had healed, though he still liked to joke about his cliff-diving adventure. Evelyn had moved in temporarily to help Claire prepare for the baby. The sun was setting, casting warm gold across the yard. Claire rested a hand on her belly, feeling the gentle roll of life inside. For the first time in a long time, there was no fear, only anticipation for the future. She whispered to her unborn child, "We're safe now, and no one will ever take that from us again." From inside the house, Sabrina's voice called, "Claire, dinner's ready." Claire smiled, stepping inside, closing the door behind her. The chapter with Jason was over, and the next one, filled with family, healing, and hope, was just beginning. So the story has come to an end, my wonderful friends. You're still here, aren't you? If you've stayed until now, something in this journey has touched your heart in its own quiet way. Like the Stoics taught, what stands in the way becomes the way. Our pain can shape our strength. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe so we can keep walking these roads together.